San Francisco. A cold, rainy night in mid-January. The rain poured down on the sagging awnings of the Mission District, turning every puddle on the street into a blurred mirror reflecting the dull red glow from the pawn shop across the road. It was nearly 11:30 p.m. The Alabaster Room Cafe, a small family-run diner, should have closed half an hour ago. But inside, the yellow lights were still on, and Naomi Ellis was still wiping down the counter. She had just finished a double shift. 12 hours on her feet, hands soaked in fryer grease and the bitter scent of burnt coffee. Her eyes stung from exhaustion. But sometimes, kindness doesn't wait for the right hour to show up. Naomi was bent over rinsing a rag when the dim light outside caught something unusual. A wheelchair. Small. Rusted. And in it, a little boy, soaked through, curled up, clinging to a torn, paper-thin blanket. She dropped the rag and walked straight to the door. No hesitation. No second thought. The door swung open and cold wind slapped her face. "Hey, sweetheart," she said, her voice as soft as flannel. She knelt down to his level. "What are you doing out here all by yourself?" The boy flinched, then slowly looked up. Black hair stuck to his forehead, face was pale from the cold. His blue eyes met hers, not scared, just full of doubt and waiting. "I'm waiting for my dad," he whispered, voice barely rising above the rain. Naomi glanced up and down the deserted street. No one. No footsteps. No cars. Just the flickering red of a neon "Cash for Gold" sign bleeding into the wet pavement. "Where's your dad, honey?" she asked, gently but with rising concern. The boy shrugged, pulled the blanket tighter. Naomi bit her lip. She'd seen too many nights like this. Too many children were left waiting for someone who was never coming back. "You can't stay out here," she said, offering a warm smile. "Come inside with me? It's warmer, and I was just about to make something special." The boy looked at her. 1 second, 2, then nodded. Naomi gently wheeled him through the doorway, her hands frozen but her chest glowing with a quiet warmth. Inside the cafe, the heat embraced them like a long, overdue hug. The scent of toasted bread, melted butter, and cinnamon filled the air. She rolled him over to the chair by the heater, draped a clean towel over his shoulders, then sat across from him, their eyes quietly meeting. "You're Naomi," she smiled. "What's your name, sweetheart?" "Eli," he replied, voice soft as a breath. Naomi nodded. "That's a beautiful name. Eli. Are you hungry, honey?" He gave a small nod. And with that, Naomi rose and walked straight to the kitchen. Her hands reached for the freshest slices of sourdough in the case, spread butter across them, and started preparing a bowl of hot tomato soup. The kind her grandmother used to make whenever the nights got too long and life felt too heavy. She placed the golden, grilled slices of bread alongside the steaming soup on the table and gently laid a folded napkin across his lap. "This," she said, "is my secret weapon for when life gets too exhausting." Eli looked at the soup as if it were the most magical thing he'd ever seen. He blew on it gently, then took his first bite. A ribbon of cheese stretched between the slices of bread. His eyes lit up. "This is the best thing I've ever had," Eli whispered, as if saying it too loud might break the dream he wasn't sure was real. Naomi laughed, easing into the seat across from him. Her heart softened. Not because of the compliment, but because of the look in his eyes. That look. She'd worn it once, too, when she was 8, and her mother had taken her to the church shelter for a bowl of soup from the donation kitchen. That kind of gratitude, raw, quiet, fragile, always leaves a mark. The boy kept eating, clumsy and endearing, with soup dribbling down his chin. Naomi pulled a napkin and leaned in to wipe him clean. "You're going to make the chef cry serving manners like that," she teased. She didn't know, couldn't have known, that across the street, in the shadows, A matte black Tesla was parked tight along the curb. Its headlights were off. Its tinted windows reflected the dim glow from the cafe's interior. But inside, a man sat silently, eyes fixed on the window pane. Gabriel Whitmore. His steely gray gaze tracked Naomi's every move, as if trying to solve an unfamiliar equation. He wasn't the type to sit and watch strangers. As CEO of Whitmore Group International, he was once dubbed the architect of decisions made without hesitation. Precise, unemotional, in absolute control. And yet here he was, watching a woman, whose name he didn't even know, wipe his son's chin. Gabriel turned the silver ring on his ring finger. An old habit, one that only surfaced when he felt unsettled, which was rare. He had told Eli to wait outside the diner for just 10 minutes. A surprise call from Japan had kept him stuck in the car. But when he looked back, the boy was no longer on the curb. Instead, Eli was in the care of a complete stranger. And instead of being scared, he was smiling. Gabriel picked up his phone. A female voice answered after 3 rings. "Whitmore's executive office. Nora speaking." "Sloan." His voice was low, precise. "Get to the Alabaster Room Cafe in 20 minutes. No blazer, no heels. I need you to blend in. Immediately." "What's going on?" "Find out everything you can about the woman serving my son." He ended the call. Inside the diner, Naomi slid a warm glass of milk toward Eli while folding up an old dish towel. "This place isn't fancy, but it's warm and real," she said. "And hey, you wouldn't be the first guest to get a free meal." Eli smiled, still holding the half-eaten sandwich in both hands. Naomi had no idea that every small gesture, every word, every quiet wipe of his chin, was being burned into the memory of a man more powerful than anyone she'd ever met. And the most dangerous part? Gabriel didn't believe in kindness. He believed in debts. And Naomi Ellis, without knowing it, had just put him in one he couldn't ignore. The rain hadn't stopped when Naomi locked up the cafe and began to clean. Chairs were flipped upside down on tables, lights dimmed to a soft, closing glow. Eli had gone. The boy had flashed one last smile as she tucked a wax paper-wrapped cookie into his hand. He whispered, "You're the nicest person I've ever met." Naomi smiled back, but somewhere deep in her chest, something else was spreading, a quiet, unshakable sense of unease. She had seen eyes like the woman who came with Eli, confident, cold as steel, and hiding something behind a gentle facade. And the way the boy hesitated, she knew. The instinct of someone who had once been left behind told her that boy might not be safe. But who was she to ask? She was just a night shift waitress, living in a crumbling apartment above an old bakery. A black woman, without a degree, without influence, with no one to protect her if things went wrong. Naomi turned off the lights, locked the door, and headed home, shoes soaked through, loose tip money stuffed into her coat pocket. 2 hours later, a knock at the door stopped her cold. No one knocks past midnight in the Mission District unless something's wrong. Naomi peered through the peephole, and her heart seized. A man, standing tall, tailored black coat, chiseled face unreadable, eyes gray like poured concrete. She didn't open the door. "Who is it?" she called through the crack. His voice was low, tightly controlled, almost chilling. "Gabriel Whitmore." Naomi froze. She'd heard that name on the news. A man who never appeared in public unless it was a shareholder meeting. The CEO of one of the largest tech conglomerates in America. "What do you want?" she asked, still gripping the lock. "A conversation." She hesitated. Every instinct screamed, "Don't." But still, she cracked the door. "We don't know each other," she said, eyes wary. "No, but you know my son." Naomi stiffened, said nothing. He continued, I saw you from across the street, the way you bent down, the way you spoke to him, the way he smiled." She folded her arms. "And you think I need a compliment?" "No," Gabriel replied, voice steady as stone. "I don't believe in compliments. I believe in debt, and you've placed me in one." He set a thick envelope on the rickety kitchen table. Heavy, high-quality paper. Weighty. "What is this?" "A job offer. 6 figures. Full benefits. You'll work directly with me at Whitmore Group International." Naomi let out a short, skeptical laugh. "Let me guess. You think tossing out a number means I'll drop my apron, walk into some polished office, and play your assistant to settle the score?" Gabriel looked her dead in the eye, not a flicker of doubt. "I don't think you need charity. That's exactly why I'm not offering it." She looked at the envelope for a long moment. "You don't know anything about me." "I know enough," he said. "I know you didn't ask Eli's name, didn't ask who I was. You helped, expecting nothing, and that is rare." Naomi's chest tightened. Something in the way he said it stirred her heart, but her mind stayed sharp. "And if I say no?" Gabriel shrugged. "I won't force you, but I won't offer twice." Naomi glanced down at the envelope. Her hand trembled slightly. Then she spoke, her voice quiet. "Let me think about it." Gabriel gave a small nod. "Tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock. If you decide to say yes." He turned and walked out of the apartment, leaving Naomi standing alone in her kitchen under the flickering ceiling light. The envelope in her hand felt heavier than anything she'd ever held. Because she knew this choice wasn't just about a job, it could change her entire life. The next morning, 8:52 a.m., Naomi stood in front of the 53-story glass tower of Whitmore Group International. The morning sunlight reflected off the facade, making it look like a massive block of metal rising out of San Francisco's financial district. She wore a black blazer she'd bought from a thrift store 3 days ago, layered over a stiff-collared white shirt she'd ironed at home with a coffee mug. Her second-hand heels were a little uneven. In the reflection of the building's massive glass, her eyes met her own, and for a split second she saw 17-year-old Naomi standing outside her first scholarship interview, hands trembling, stomach empty, but spine straight. The glass doors opened. She stepped inside. The space felt like another world. The scent of polished walnut, marble floors, and gold-trimmed clocks ticking in unison. People passed by her without a glance, without a word. But Naomi knew too well the feeling of being scanned by silent judgment. Cold, precise, the way people read product labels at a grocery store. She wasn't surprised. She'd lived her whole life under eyes like those. 9:01 a.m. Gabriel didn't wait for her to knock. "You're 1 minute late," he said, eyes still on the screen. "Next time will be the last." Naomi raised an eyebrow. "And yet, here I am, and the door still opened." "Interesting." He didn't reply, just gestured slightly toward the leather chair across from him. His office overlooked the entire San Francisco Bay. But in all that vast space, there was nothing excessive, only the precise chill of order. Naomi sat down, straight back, direct gaze. She hadn't even spoken yet when the glass door behind her clicked open. A woman entered, platinum blonde hair tied back, slate blue tailored suit, flawless fit, tablet in hand, gray eyes, cold. Naomi didn't need an introduction. Sloane Maddox, the woman from last night, the one who had taken Eli away. "You're Ellis?" Sloane asked, her voice even and sharp as a laser cut. Naomi nodded. "And you're the one who doesn't lie very well." Sloane paused. For a fleeting second, her lips tightened, as if to hold back a retort. But then she turned to Gabriel. "I've prepared the briefing for the Orion Group negotiation." Gabriel reached out his hand. "Leave it. I'll handle it myself." Sloane handed him the tablet and turned to leave, but just as she reached the door, she stopped, turned back to Naomi. "Good luck." It didn't sound like a wish. It sounded like a warning. Gabriel sat back down, opening the file. "Orion Group," he said. "They want to move their production line overseas. Cut costs, boost profit, which means thousands of American jobs gone." Naomi frowned, flipping to the first page. "And what do you want me to do? Smile until they grow a conscience?" Gabriel didn't smile. "No, I want you to use your understanding of people, the kind MBAs can't teach." Naomi leaned back in her chair. "And if I fail, then you learn. And try again." His eyes held no threat, but no pity either. Only belief. A cold, clear kind. He wasn't betting on kindness. He was betting on competence. Naomi lifted the tablet, studying the documents. Anxiety surged in her chest, but she held it back. How many times in her life had she fought when the world assumed she wasn't enough? She'd fight again, and this time she would win, right in the heart of a world that was never built for her. Conference room, 43rd floor. The space was cold as steel, glass walls all around, a conference table as long as a ping-pong court, crafted from imported ebony wood. 3 men in tailored suits were already seated, each of them white, over 50, and wearing the expression of men convinced they were always right. Naomi sat next to Gabriel, saying nothing. Their eyes skimmed past her like she was a junior assistant. A shadow, an unfamiliar seat at the table. The man in the center was Philip Langford, chairman of Orion. Silver hair slicked back, blood-red tie. "Mr. Whitmore," he began, his tone flat and procedural, like a lawyer reading charges, "we're proposing a full transfer of the assembly phase to Taiwan. Projected savings 27% in operational costs during year 1. Gabriel gave a small nod. "Savings? But at what cost?" Langford offered a thin smile. "Necessary, not personal." Naomi clasped her hands beneath the table. Her heart pounded, but her face remained composed. "Then let me rephrase," she said, her voice clear but not loud. 27% in savings. How many families lose their income? How many elderly people lose their health care? How many kids drop out of school because their parents were laid off? Langford turned toward her. A glance, then a smirk. "And you are?" "Naomi Ellis," she replied. "Associate Strategic Advisor. Someone who's watched an entire neighborhood disappear because of impersonal decisions like this." Langford leaned back in his chair, his chest rising and falling with restrained irritation. "You think I'm a villain?" Naomi smiled. "No, I think you're a businessman, and I respect that. But there's one factor your model doesn't account for: the market's response." She slid a folder across the table. "These are media analytics from the past 3 years," she continued. "Data from 8 television networks and 12 social media platforms. Every time an American company outsources and slashes jobs, negative reactions spike by 300% in the first 48 hours. Stocks drop. Consumer confidence tanks." Langford didn't touch the folder. Naomi tilted her head slightly. "You might save a few million right now, but in 36 months, you'll lose your brand, your trust, and the market share you thought no one could take from you." Langford scoffed. "How long have you been in this business?" Naomi didn't flinch. "Long enough to know you should never underestimate the people not on your payroll." Gabriel remained silent, but his eyes followed every word she spoke. He didn't interrupt. He didn't correct. He didn't shield her. Langford finally opened the folder, and for the first time his expression shifted from dismissive to uncertain. A full minute passed in silence. Then he set the cover down. His voice is slower. "We will reconsider." Gabriel nodded. I hope your final decision includes more humanity than just metrics. The Orion group exited the room. Naomi remained seated. Gabriel turned toward her, tapping his finger lightly on the table. I knew I wasn't wrong to bring you in. Naomi exhaled. Damn right, Mr. Whitmore. For the first time, he allowed the corner of his mouth to lift. Almost a smile. 2 weeks later, Naomi had just wrapped up a meeting on the 28th floor when she saw Sloane Maddox waiting for her in the hallway. No knock, no greeting, just one sentence. We have a problem. Naomi frowned. What kind of problem? Sloane didn't answer. She simply held out a printed page, the first screen of an internal email. The sender, Naomi.Ellis@whitmoregroup.com. Attachment, confidential financial report. Recipient, an investigative journalist from the San Francisco Chronicle. Naomi stared, stunned. I never sent this. I know, Sloane replied, but someone wants the world to think you did. The air between them thickened like cold fog. Naomi's hands clenched. Does Gabriel know? Sloane nodded. And so does the board. Gabriel's office was unnervingly quiet. He sat behind his desk, fingers laced, eyes locked on her as Naomi stepped inside. Do you understand how serious this is? He asked, voice calm and flat. Naomi dropped the papers onto his desk. I do. And I also know that someone like me, standing in this room, is always the first to be suspected. Gabriel didn't argue, didn't confirm, but his silence chilled her more than any accusation. She stepped closer. If I wanted to sabotage this company, I could have done it on day one. But I didn't, and you know that. Their eyes locked, solid as stone. Then Gabriel exhaled. I believe you, he said, but the board doesn't. Naomi turned away, steadying herself, then met his gaze again. So, what do we do now? For the first time, Gabriel didn't say I. He said, we trace it and find who's actually behind it. Within 24 hours, Naomi and Sloane, two women who once regarded each other with quiet suspicion, sat side by side, eyes scanning lines of server logs. Someone had spoofed an internal email address using an external IP. The file name, signature, formatting, everything was so precise it was nearly undetectable. Nearly, but not enough to get past Sloane. Here, she pointed. One login from an unknown device at 2:17 a.m. last weekend, from an office on the 26th floor. Bryce Kavanaugh, Vice President of Development, the same man who had openly questioned Naomi's presence in executive meetings, a man who smiled politely in hallways but kept his distance behind closed doors. 2 days later, boardroom. Naomi didn't wait to be summoned. She walked in and placed a thick folder on the glass table, then looked each member in the eye, each doubt-filled gaze, each expensive suit, already assuming the exit door had been opened for her. Before you close that door, take a look at this. Her voice wasn't loud, but it carried enough weight to still the entire room. Logs, access times, screenshots, system trails, all of it pointed to one person, Bryce Kavanaugh. 3 seats away, Bryce went pale. You set this up, he stammered. No, Naomi cut in. I don't need to make things up. The truth is loud enough. She turned to Gabriel. You told me if I didn't find the real culprit, I'd be swept out. Gabriel rose from his seat, slowly, deliberately. You're not being swept out, Naomi. You just calmed the storm. He turned to the board. Effective immediately, Bryce Kavanaugh is suspended. A third-party investigation will follow, and anyone considering a similar tactic, consider this your warning. The room fell silent. Naomi didn't smile. She didn't need to. She had survived worse than this room. But today, she didn't just survive. She won. 2 weeks later, on a modest stage in the heart of the city, the Ellis Whitmore Community Center was officially inaugurated. A red banner fluttered above the awning in the soft, early summer breeze. Below it, students, parents, staff, and members of the press filled the polished stone courtyard. Naomi stood there, sleeves rolled up on her crisp white shirt, eyes lifted to the sign above, the Ellis Whitmore Initiative. There were no blinding lights, no flowery tributes, but every step she took across these tiles was real, and every opportunity this place would open was just as real. Beside her stood Eli Whitmore, now a freshman studying environmental technology, holding the ceremonial scissors, smiling widely. "You know," he said, "the road to this started with a grilled cheese sandwich and a bowl of tomato soup." Naomi laughed, shaking her head. "And a wax paper-wrapped cookie." Eli nodded. "The only thing I kept from that night." Behind the stage, Gabriel Whitmore stood in silence. He didn't speak. He didn't need a microphone. But his eyes followed Naomi with the quiet acceptance of a man who had spent a lifetime denying one simple truth. There are things money can't buy: trust, kindness, and loyalty. Gabriel had built an empire on control and calculation. But from one rainy night in a small diner with a woman who wasn't afraid, he had learned the most valuable lesson of all. Sometimes you have to believe in what can't be measured. Naomi didn't just place him in her debt. She changed him. 2 years later, 50th floor. Naomi Ellis's new office, Vice President of Strategy and Community Impact, faced directly out over the Golden Gate Bridge. Behind her, a wall-sized map displayed the cities her programs had reached: youth mentorships, STEM scholarships for young black girls, retraining initiatives for laid-off older workers. She wasn't just surviving anymore, she was building. And she never forgot where it all began. That afternoon, Naomi returned to the Alabaster Room Cafe. It was still there. Same weathered sign. Same smell of bread and butter just like it used to be. She ordered a bowl of tomato soup, sat by the window, watched the street. A paperboy ran past in the rain, wrapped in a thin coat. No one noticed. Naomi stood, picked up an extra sandwich, walked outside. "Have you eaten?" she asked, voice as soft as ever. The boy shook his head. She knelt down, handed him the sandwich, and smiled. "Thank you for staying with us through the end of this story. If something in this journey touched your heart, please hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you won't miss the next story of quiet kindness. Because sometimes it's the smallest acts that creates the biggest change."